Thank you all. This is great. Man, she was amazing. Jessica was amazing.
Yeah.
So she gave my whole talk already, so I don't have to. So this is us. A lot of us go low carb and keto, and then we go, what happened? How come my friend looks like that big ship on one side, and I'm this train wreck on one side? Breathing the same fuel, right? What's going on? So these are my disclosures. I have about 20 years of practice in internal medicine, about 5 of which kind of learning medicine finally with low carb and keto stuff, metabolic health. I have no conflict of interest other than my Life's Best Medicine podcast is sponsored by Health Code and Keto Mojo, but I'm not talking about those guys today. So this is kind of what we're going to learn if we're a bunch of doctors, but basically just relax and enjoy the ride a little bit. We're going to talk about stress and sleep. Yeah. So how many people? This is their first venture into like low carb and keto and all that. Then you got dragged along by someone. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we got to see some people from last year that lost 100 pounds over the last year and got off all these meds and stuff. Puts me in Tro out of business, but that's okay. So this is the thing we're talking about is metabolic syndrome. This is the big killer. This is what us doctors worry about. Most of the stuff we're treating are based on this. High blood sugars,
Yeah.
low HDL, high triglycerides, large waist circumference, which is the visceral fat part of it, and high blood pressure. And all these things run together. You'll notice LDL cholesterol is not on that list, right?
Yeah.
Because it really depends on the environment, right? So for a lot of us, we're hearing about these drugs. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but those balloons are our fat cells. And once those fat cells start filling up with sugar and cholesterol and fat, they're about to explode. So our body makes it insulin. Insulin's trying to shove more energy into the cells. And it's like all of us are overwhelmed at work. We say, I can't take any more work, right? Give it to someone else. Well, once there's no one else to do the work, so what happens is eventually we run out of fat cells, and this is why our body stops listening to insulin and says, look, I can't take any more energy in. So, like Jessica said, we deal with a lot of stuff. This is the most complicated part of the body, right? The brain, right? Because this is where we go with emotions, addiction, strongholds, and Pavlov's dogs, where we smell something and we want to eat right away. So this guy, you're going to see him roaming around this ship, right? He's one of my heroes in life. Oh, he's here. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. I thought he'd be out with his family. Shoot. Shoot. All right. But this is one of the smartest guys around, and he's really influenced my life and my career and helped tons of my patients, right? When I first met him, he said, I'm not a real doctor, I'm just a PhD, but everything we do is based on his work, right? So he said, Brian, look, 5 things that matter, right? And if nothing else from this talk matters, this is what I would take home. Look what he talks about for metabolic health. Manage your stress. First, get adequate sleep. Number 2, avoid smoking, limit your alcohol intake, exercise regularly, eat real food. So a lot of us are trying to eat real food, but we forget about all the other stuff. So at Low Carb MD podcast, we've been talking about these things, and I said, well, there's so much more to it. Like what Jessica is talking about with strongholds, right? Like, we just say, I'm just weak, I just can't do it. I know what I'm supposed to do, but sticking to it, that's the hard part. So again, control your carbohydrates, prioritize protein, don't fear fat, and even throw in some fasting, as Jason Fung, who's another hero of mine, would say. In other words, stay insulin sensitive. So that's why some of these big muscle guys, we see the trainers around, they can get away with a lot more than we can, right? Because there they are. Yeah, because what they're going to get extra carbs, where's to go their muscle and they burn it off. The rest of us who don't have as much muscle, we have to pay the price a little bit more. Or when we're trying to, yeah, get more exercise. We'll talk about that a little bit. So this is the big thing with LDL. Ivor Cummins, a good friend of mine, he gave this talk one time and he said, look, let's look at, this is the country of Colombia. And they took everyone who had a heart attack or a stroke. And they said, let's look and see what markers we could have looked at to predict this. So when they looked at total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, it was a risk ratio of 1 means it made no difference. You couldn't look at that and say, well, you had high LDL, that's why you had a heart attack. Or it's low, you're not gonna have a heart attack. High blood pressure doubled your risk of heart attack. High insulin, almost 700% increased risk of heart attack. But how many of us have had, I'll be just curious, how many people here have had an insulin checked by their doctor? How many people have asked their doctor to check an insulin and they refuse? Yeah, so it's about even. So if that's my biggest risk factor, that means my balloons are full the higher that insulin's going. And this is another important one I think that we overlook a lot is the HDL cholesterol when we look at cardiac risk. So basically, if you look at the very back row, the tallest column there is the lowest HDL. But even if that person's LDL going across the front row is 220, if their HDL is over 85, look at their cardiac risk. So it's kind of looking at that and saying, what of those stacks do I want to be in? And this is another one from the great Ben Bickman here that I use every day in practice, but that yellow line is the insulin and A1C levels. And the green one is the guys shoving everyone into that balloon, right? So we have about 10 to 20 years before we get diagnosed with diabetes to see that insulin creeping up and up and up until your pancreas says, I can't keep up anymore, and you'll see the insulin start going down and then the sugars go up. So I hear doctors all the time telling me, why do you worry so much about insulin? Because once we don't treat them for diabetes, we'll give them meds once they get over this A1C of 6.5, right? But this disaster has been happening for 10 to 20 years before that. Yep. So we can prevent it. Gosh, Ben, I'm giving your talk, it seems like, man. Sorry, man. Every talk is like that. Well, look, insulin resistance, but this is so important because I said everything I'm treating is based on this insulin resistance. So I get to throw a drug at you for each of these things we deal with, or maybe we just attack that insulin. Maybe that will be the big difference. So has anyone here heard of Rosetto? Rosetto, Pennsylvania. So it became an issue because President Eisenhower had a heart attack in 1955, and then all of a sudden we started getting concerned about cardiovascular risk because the president had a heart attack, right? So they looked around the United States and they said, where's the lowest incidence of heart attacks and strokes? And it was Rosetto, Pennsylvania. A bunch of Italian immigrants, right? And they go, what is so special about this? Is it the altitude? Is it the water? So they sent a crew there for 10 years and they looked at it. And people over 65 years of old age or more had half the mortality of anywhere else in the US, right? Why? What was the secret? Was it statin drugs? No, it wasn't invented yet, right? They were all on statin drugs. They weren't all vegan, right? Did they switch to vegetable oil and got healthier? No, they were doing butter and all the other stuff. They were eating Italian food, right? They weren't even keto. So there was no difference in the other towns when they looked at smoking, exercise, all these other things, cigarette smoking. They smoked, they drank, they did all the stuff they shouldn't be doing. Was it genetics? Well, no, because some people who moved out of the town had a heart attack at 45. So what was special about the town? The difference is that the rosaceans were found to be cohesive. They're like us, they all got together, they said, let's put this place together like Debbie and the crew did last night. The elderly were revered, they had family values, 3 generations often lived in the same house. Because they were immigrants after World War II, it wasn't very popular, so they had to watch out for each other because no one else was gonna help them, right? So, civic pride, they were the first ones to volunteer when there was a disaster in the world, right? So, that's what it turned out to be. They had cohesiveness, they enjoyed each other's company, they had fun, they played games. The grandparents would take care of the grandkids, the parents could go out to dinner when they wanted. So, are stress and sleep important? This is one of my patients, 73 years old. This guy's never had, I always didn't like him because he was thin and healthy his whole life, right? So he was between 180 to 182 pounds for 19 years. I took care of him. I'm still taking care of him. But in the last year he gained, after the lockdowns and everything, he gains 23 pounds. I'm like, what in the world? What changed? So of course I asked him the same, did you stop exercising? No, I exercised the same. Did you start drinking more? No, I drink the same. Nothing changed. So if it's calories in, calories out, he shouldn't be gaining 23 pounds in a year. So what happened at the age of 72 of being consistent weight? His 99-year-old mom has dementia. He moved in with her. Oh. He's waking up every 4 hours to make sure she's okay. He's stressed about this, worried about her all the time, taking her to the doctor's appointment. He used to be a retired single, doing whatever he wanted, lived on a ranch and stuff. So he wasn't sleeping, he was waking up every 4 or 5 hours. The good news is, after gaining 23 pounds, he lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks or so when he got someone to stay 3 nights a week with mom, right? So he could sleep and have someone watch her so he didn't have to worry. So insufficient sleep is associated with all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Increased mortality and morbidity. So in medicine, we would pride ourselves on how little sleep we got. Like someone would say, I only slept 4 hours, I only got 2 and I feel great, and you start realizing, we all start gaining weight and getting gray hairs and all that kind of stuff. So sleep is associated with earlier cardiac risk, high blood pressure, poor glucose control, diabetes, all the stuff we're trying to battle here. Increased risk of diabetes, coronary artery disease. 5,500 men, if they were sleeping 6 hours or less, they were 66% more likely to have hypertension, right? They even did this with Navy SEALs. They sleep deprived them, stressed them. They started showing insulin resistance and hypertension in the elite athletes. So all these things showed hypertension. So a lot of us are struggling with hypertension. What do the doctors say? Don't eat salt.
Yeah.
We're sponsored by Salty. Guess what? We disagree. So it's really watch that insulin level and the stress levels, right, and get your sleep. So poor sleep increases sympathetic, and sympathetic tone is when we're stressed and tense, and we're going to talk about that a lot. But that raises blood pressure, right? So that makes sense when you're sleep deprived and stressed, and most of us, it's a two-edged sword. We get stressed and then we're sleep deprived, or if we're sleep deprived, we get stressed. And it just gets worse and worse, so we get elevated blood pressure, increased shearing force on the blood vessels, and so these catecholamines are surging all the time. So some of us, we're riding on this high stress level all the time, except everyone on the cruise, of course. It slows glucose metabolism. I don't think that's beneficial to us, right? Increases hunger signals, like our ghrelin goes up. We want to eat all the time when we're stressed. Plus, our satiety hormones go way down, so we want to eat more and more. And so growth hormone, testosterone, this GLP-1 that we're hearing about a lot, they all get altered by sleep deprivation. And so basically sleep, if you're sleeping less than 6 hours a day, associated with a 38%, almost 40% absolute risk of obesity, right? Type 2 diabetes, cardio, all the stuff we're worried about. So sometimes, we start a keto diet. If people, I haven't lost any weight yet. Well, it's only been 3 hours. We have to give it a little bit more time. But we also increase the amount of energy we take in, and we also decrease the amount of energy we're burning with sleep deprivation. So a lot of us put that last on the back burner, and that's something we really, really need to focus on. And then also, the more sleep deprived you are, you lose that cognitive control, right? So you can't, I don't care, I'm having these, whatever it is, right? Because you lose that ability when we're fatigued and tired out at the end of the day. That's why we see the sugars go up at night most of the time. During the morning, it's pretty good for a lot of us. Then at night, it goes straight up. Because that's when we burned out all those things. And also, I just want to touch on this for a second, is this circadian misalignment. So I see a lot of people who do IT, or they have odd work hours, and when they're sleeping during the day, there's tons of studies showing that has a negative effect on our metabolic health. And then the more sleep deprived we are, the worse our stress gets. So again, powerful influence on infectious disease, immune system gets affected. So they showed that seniors who got a flu shot, if they were sleep deprived, it was 50% less effective, just from that alone. And then our inflammatory markers go up. That's one thing we're looking at from a cardiovascular risk, something called the HSCRP, and we see those markedly elevated if you're sleep deprived and stressed all the time. Again, partial sleep deprivation causes problems. So you go across the board, and the other, I hate to be the messenger on this one, but alcohol screws up the sleep cycle. Dr. Huberman did a great podcast on this. So no matter when we have it, lunch, a little bit, a lot. So it does affect the sleep cycle, so that's something to keep in mind. And again, over 40 studies have shown increased risk of depression, and a lot of police officers and people who are, paramedics and people who are up all night have a markedly increased risk of metabolic disease and visceral fat. And so this high insulin levels are associated with depression. So no one talks about that. Like, you're depressed, not like, what are we eating? How are we sleeping? Are we stressed? All these things the doctor should be asking. Why aren't we asking it? Because we have 9 or 10 minutes with a patient, so we don't have time to get into that nasty stuff, like divorce or life stress, work stress. So again, there's huge correlation with obesity and diabetes too, and people with depression are way more likely to be obese, and people with obesity are more likely to get diabetes. Twice as likely if you're diabetic. So this increased sympathetic nervous system, that's being like having your car alarm set too sensitive, your alarm's going off all day. Other people don't worry, like some people on this boat may be worrying about other things, and other people say, no big deal, it's fine, and you just kind of get through it. So there is an inverse relationship between the stress and sleep and catecholamines and blood pressure. And this is one thing that's kind of interesting with those of us who struggle with like binge eating and eating the wrong thing sometimes, is we get this serotonin rush that first time we have that cookie or that donut. So some people who aren't affected as much, they can have that cookie and go, okay, I'll have a half a cookie, and they put it away, and everyone looks at them like, how can you do that? You know? And someone goes, I need 12 to feel good. So that has that part of it, because over time you lose that response. So the more we're away from it, the better off we do. So that's why some people, once they change their lifestyle, and you get that freedom that you're talking about, where people say, I don't think about food all day. I skipped lunch today, and it's pretty amazing to see that. Again, poor sleep affects blood sugar control. So, this is all things we look at. This guy is Dr. Folletti. I heard Churro talking about this dumb study, and I started looking, I go, this is kind of crazy. So he's a super nice guy. He actually, I emailed him, and the next day he called me at my office. I was like, I didn't even give him my phone number. He said, you don't have a common last name, so I tracked you down. But he did something. Has anyone heard of the ACE trial?
No.
So the ACE trial is adverse childhood events. Yeah, that's it. So, and I have to multitask. I have to have a mic and a changer. For us guys, that's pretty challenging. But they just asked 10 questions of people and said, okay, let's look at these things. So what he was noticing is people were failing out of, it was at Kaiser, they had a terrible weight loss, which was a liquid protein stuff, right? But he would notice some people would do really great, and then all of a sudden they would drop out. And he started asking people out of curiosity, because they always talk to people who succeed, but what about the people who fail? And a vast majority, guess what the answer was? Someone noticed that they were losing weight. Someone complimenting them. And they said, I didn't want to be noticed. Why? Because they might have had early childhood trauma, they've been abused, and that was their security blanket. So a lot of us struggle with that. And so these questions looked at things like, were you neglected as a child? Did they say your brother's smarter than you? Did you have food insecurity, or you couldn't afford food? Or was food the center of attention for all celebrations or all mourning? And so what does that have to do with us adults when these are things that happen when we were young kids? Well, there's a significant link between these things with comorbidities, including heart disease, lung cancer, diabetes, and autoimmune disease, just based on this questionnaire. And so women with significant ACEs were 7 times more likely to have abuse as they got older. And why? ACE scores were correlated with health outcomes, and that 67% of people have at least one of these things, and people with 8 or more have way more comorbidities. So we don't think about asking people with COPD and hepatitis and all these diseases, like, what happened when you were growing up? What happens as a kid? And if we don't touch on these things, we're missing a huge opportunity, right? Because we can get people in with counselors or coaches that really can help with these things. If you have 7 or more of these, and some people are doing the math in their head right now, like, how many do I got? Right? I did the same thing, like, okay. But having mental illness, abuse in the family, all those kind of things. Having 7 or more triples your lifelong risk of having lung cancer, 3.5 times increased risk of ischemic heart disease. 6 or more of these shortens your lifespan by 20 years. Right? We talk about smoking, you go, what about like childhood stress? Because if we don't deal with that, we have these catecholamines, all these stress hormones flowing around all the time. So what do? A lot of us look for that food to give us that relief for a little while, the stress that we're under. 6 or more, 4,600 times more likely to attempt suicide, right? So given the gravity of this, you think, wow, this is pretty dramatic. So, and this, just so you know, this was in San Diego County with upper middle class people. This was not the inner city where stress levels are way higher, and we see obesity and diabetes taking off in the inner cities. Traumatized kids, 50 times more likely to develop asthma, right? These are things that you think, that is crazy, but we're looking at massive inflammation in the body causing these kind of things. So they did this study, and they showed 35% reduction in primary care visits, 11% reduction in ER visits if they address these issues. Multi-billion-dollar savings for a Kaiser organization over the next couple of years. They declined. The doctors refused. They said, we're doctors, we're not social workers, we're not talking about these things. Like, can you imagine that? Well, in the doctor's defense, they're saying, look, you're giving us 8 minutes per patient. How are we gonna fix the world? We can't do that. So that was the big thing. So this is what I was getting at is some of us have alarms that are set too sensitive. Some people go through the world, they're like lions, and nothing bothers them, but then other of us are like deer, we're like looking around like who's trying to kill us all the time, right? So that's why stress is such a huge factor, and all these 80% of primary care visits, and this is probably an underestimate, are stress related. Like, that's pretty wild. Back pain, neck, you see someone going through a divorce or a life stress, everything's wrong with them, right? Does anyone know anyone who said, man, when I was stressed all the time I felt great, and then I started relaxing and everything fell apart? So, and again, 80% of people with autoimmune disease show a significant stress within weeks before onset. So is it a coincidence that Monday morning is the most likely time for heart attack? So at least we get the weekend in, right? Then we have the stress of going back to work, and the holidays too are huge stressors because we have to deal with our brother-in-laws and all that kind of stuff. So stress is the elephant in the room. And so I would always see this patient, she's a middle-aged, real estate agent, super stressed, we're doing a consult, and she's like, hold on doc, let me send this email, I'll be right with you. You know, during our talk. So you realize that's how their life is all the time. So how are you gonna prepare meals? How are you gonna function better? It's really a challenge. And then getting on the scale like 6 times a day. It's like, it's not gonna change. Give it a little time, right? So this is work stress, right? This is like, yeah, you don't wanna mess up with all these guys again, but most of us, this is the work stress we're looking at. Like, you know, everyone's shoving more paperwork at us and we have things to do, make this call, you have to do this before lunch. And so it can be overwhelmed. And so we're sitting there overwhelmed all the time. So even these guys know, the indie guys, and for 18 years of my career before Dr. Ben back there, I was on the accelerator full speed, right? I couldn't slow down in the turns because I'd get behind. So maybe the guy in the back is the smartest guy who'll wait for everyone else to wreck and then they'll take over. But I think we have to take our foot off the accelerator sometimes, and that's why we're here. And these people, they'll make us crazy because they go, oh, I lost 5 more pounds, I wasn't even trying. You know what I mean? Like, they're zen and they don't get stressed, and there is definitely a component to that. And so this is a continuous, hopefully you can see these lines, but this is what we like to see of those of us who have a continuous glucose monitor. We like it to be steady and cool and calm, right? Not this roller coaster up and down with stress, insulin going crazy and stuff. So this is from one of my patients who is a type 2 diabetic, or was a type 2 diabetic. She's totally off all meds now. But this is her first reading on Friday. Like, everything looks pretty good. So I was like, what the heck? So on Monday we had a meeting. I said, what happened? Like, you see those sugars are up 80 points consistently. Like, you'd have to have an IV of sugar to keep your sugars that high. So I said, specifically, what happened on between these 2 arrows? Your numbers were crazy. And then after that, it dropped down below your baseline, right? And the next day was lower than this. She said, I was given a talk to a bunch of doctors, right? So she was fasting that day. And look how high her sugar is. So when we get frustrated that our sugars are high, if you're sleep deprived and stressed, you think that doesn't have a role? So the same week, as we have divine intervention we believe in, right? So the same week, here's another patient of mine, type 2 diabetic, and the bottom line is what he normally runs, right? The top one, I just want to give you that as a comparison. That's the week before he left. The one on top, you see that big, huge jump? The next day, another jump. Next day, 2 more jumps. If I could use my pointer, I could point it out, but I don't think it will work on the TV. But that was Taco Bell, right? He was doing great, and he flew in. He was taking a vacation. He's the CEO of a major corporation. He flew in to see his grandson for the first time and said, here, I'm not answering any, like us on the cruise, I don't have cell coverage. You can't call me, don't email me, I'm not responding if the place goes down. Because usually at dinner time, he's answering 6 or 7 texts. So he got Taco Bell. He was just seeing his grandson for the first time and didn't want to be bugged, right? Oops, I go back. So the second line there, you see that he had chips and salsa. Next day was exercise, right? That exercise spiked the sugar. So it's not all that the sugar's going up is a problem. He burned off what he ate the day before, then he had dinner and dessert. Next day, same thing, he had biscuits and gravy. He says, oh, I can't repeat what he said, but oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. I'm not gonna do that again. And then you can see he had dinner again, and the next day he was good all day. Guess what he had for breakfast? I don't know if you can read it. Eggs, bacon, and eggs, and look, his sugars are perfect, right? Right, when he had biscuits and gravy, they were crazy. And then that night, he said, I'm just having a hamburger bowl. But they talked to him, they go, it's your last night here in New Mexico, so have these sweet potato fries, and his sugars went up, right? So after that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to talk him off the ledge. 10 days on vacation, you know, seeing his grandkid, away from his stressful job, less weights, more walking. Spent time, he said, Brian, I just wasted time all week, right? I didn't do anything productive. We played games, laughed, talked about childhood stuff, laughed more than usual. Net weight gain in 10 days of that, negative 8.8 pounds. He was plateaued for months before that. So if you tell me stress doesn't play a role, that's when I started looking at this stuff. So one of the big things is oxytocin. You know, oxytocin is the feel good, like when newborn babies are there, when we fall in love, when we're happy, when we're on a cruise, oxytocin goes up. So for oxytocin is low, it shifts us, this DHEA goes towards cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So it's telling you bad times are coming, okay, let's store more fat, let's get rid of muscle because that's wasting energy. So that's what we don't want. So if we're in a constant state of stress, we're going to this cortisol. And Dr. Bickman actually posted a study not too long ago showing your body will break down muscle to raise sugar levels. And that's what we're seeing, is that people lose muscle mass because muscle is a detriment if bad times are coming, right? I would joke that these muscle guys will be the first ones to die when but then I realized those of us with more fat, they're gonna eat us anyways. They're gonna think, yeah. See, they know, they already planned it out. Shoot, I shouldn't have told them. But so that's one of those things. And so we start shifting to visceral fat. Why? Because that's like dense energy, and that raises insulin levels and all these kind of things. High blood pressure, all these things we're dealing with, these health problems, right? Pro-inflammatory. Inflammation is not our friend. Chronic inflammation is a huge one. And Dr. Bickman's been talking about ceramides. That's something when we have 2 more hours we'll talk about, but it's pretty amazing the effects of stress and sleep deprivation, all these on those markers for metabolic disease. We take up glucose faster into our visceral fat than the muscle. So the muscle guys say, oh, I eat sugar, it goes to my muscles, who cares, right? The rest of us can't do that. Visceral adipose increase our risk of everything, basically.
Yeah.
Atherosclerosis, microvascular breakdown, peripheral neuropathy, all these things. So I'm just going to touch on this. There's a ton of information on the gut microbiome. I talked about this 2 years ago, and I had a doctor say, you can't talk about that, there's no science. As I read 60 studies before I gave 2 minutes on this stuff. So there's a ton of stuff. Was mom stressed when she was pregnant with you? It goes back to these childhood traumas, right? Did mom eat a lot of processed foods? C-section versus vaginal. C-section, which is the way of going now, it markedly increased risk of obesity, diabetes, and these conditions. Because we don't get that oxytocin, and we're not getting the mother's microbiome. Breastfed versus bottle-fed, huge difference in outcomes. Stressful stuff at home, all these things that I've been talking about. Food as a reward, right, or a punishment. Adult stress levels, poor sleep, all these things play a huge role in obesity and diabetes. So chronic stress, I like this study because it's kind of cool, but basically what they did is they took people with colitis and they started looking back at their stress response. So they were seeing this correlation with stress and colitis, which is inflammation of the colon and bloody bowel movements and all that. Huge struggles in life. It's stressful when you have to know where every bathroom is before you go on vacation or IBS. So they took half these mice, the lucky ones went to Bob Marley land, right? They listened to reggae music, they had the ocean breeze, everything was great. So they took the other poor guys and they put them where there's cats chasing them all day, and lightning and things keeping them up, and they're sleep deprived and stressed, right? Yeah, the mice, I don't know if they did informed consent for that, but, so what they did is they gave them this substance known as dextran sodium that causes colitis, and all the non-stressed mice did not get it. All the stressed out mice got colitis, everyone. And they go, that's weird. So what they did is they took the microbiome from the stressed out ones and they implanted it into the healthy one, and they got it. Then they took some of the healthy microbiome to a sick rat, and then they got better. So then they took all the healthy mice, and then they put them on antibiotics for 3 weeks, brought them back, gave them that same thing, they all got colitis. So these guys in our gut are playing a role, and our diet plays a role in the microbiome. And so these are just some of these studies showing that stress decreases this mucus layer, and we absorb this thing called lipopolysaccharides, which can cause inflammation, stress, all these other things we're talking about. So sometimes people go to a carnivore diet, for instance, and they feel great and all their joint pain goes away. So this has something to do with that. Even taking vinegar, there's studies showing, this was red wine vinegar, and they showed that people's moods got better. College students had less suicidal ideation just from taking a shot of that every day. Because there's gut microbiome that is missing that makes these. So let's go the other way with oxytocin. Instead of being stressed and tense all the time, once if it's high, that tells us we have a ton of money in the bank, right? So that means you can spend money, you can get pregnant, you can buy those new shoes, whatever. You make more testosterone, progesterone, which a lot of us are struggling with low testosterone. So maybe if we had our oxytocin level goes up, we shift it more that way. Because muscle is a detriment if you're going through a famine, right? So a lot of us, we're stressed all the time, so your body thinks, I'm gonna protect you and let you store a lot of fat and get rid of your muscle. So oxytocin, if I had a 2-hour talk, I could go through all of them, but look at that. Like, all the benefits: anti-cancer, improved bone density, improved muscle mass, decreased cardiac risk, improved healing, improved immune function, decreased cancer risk. So the sad part about it, here's another page of all the stuff, right? It's ridiculous. Beta cell function, your pancreas works better. Everything gets better when your oxytocin's higher. So of course, every study I read on oxytocin, the answer was, what if only pharma could come up with a drug to make your oxytocin go up? It's like, how about smiling more, laughing, having fun, and not taking life so serious, right? You don't have to inject that. You don't have to do anything with that. So, since the exercise guys are here, exercise is totally useless, except if you care about these things, right? Like, it's incredible what exercise does. It does raise oxytocin levels, right? But there's all these other things: improved bone density. You know, that's, if you have more muscle mass, you have more place to put the sugar, right? Lower skeletal muscle mass, increased risk of diabetes, insulin resistance. So when someone says, oh, you have to eat vegan, it's like, how much protein am I getting? What's gonna happen to my muscle mass? Like, no one thinks along these terms. They just think about that one thing in your heart, right? So there's a big muscle guy on one side and a skinny guy on the other. So you can't just judge a book by its cover. The big guy has very little visceral fat. So they can get away with more than we can. So if you have no muscle mass, you gotta be way more careful, right? How about mindset stuff? As Jessica talked about, we have about 26, or it's funny because it says 6,000 to 40,000 thoughts. So guys have on the lower end maybe 4,000. We don't think as much, but 85% of those thoughts are negative, right? It's crazy. It's unbelievable. Like, we wouldn't do that to our worst enemy. And then 99% of those, 95% are recurrent every day, right? So you can't do it, you're a loser, you're addicted to food, whatever it is, and we keep telling ourselves, I'm just lazy, I'm just always late, you know, things like that, we just give ourselves. Does anyone know what this is? I had to look it up a couple times. Roger Bannister, the first guy to break the 4-minute mile. They said it was impossible to do. He held the record, I think, for 46 days. And then someone broke his record. Because once they realized you could do it, now we have over 2,000 people who've broken it, right? So gratitude, being thankful, appreciative, sounds silly. You know, I've said there's really studies on this, but look at this. You know, being gratitude, you know, having gratitude lowers stress levels, cortisol, triglycerides, HDL gets higher. So all these things decrease insomnia, headaches, right? Sometimes just being thankful and not saying, I wish I had that car that this guy has. You know, all these things that we get caught up on what really matters. Again, gratitude. Interpersonal relationships is one of the biggest markers we've looked at for cardiovascular disease. And it comes back to all these things with the stress hormones, right? If we think we get the bad deal all the time, you know, we do get the bad deal ultimately. Lower drug abuse, alcohol abuse, people who are grateful are less likely to use substance. I like this quote by Mark Twain. It says, don't just sit there and worry, be productive, be proactive. Do something, anything about what's worrying you, you know, so that you can gain information, focus, and control over the situation. I've suffered a great many catastrophes in my life. Most of them never happened, right? So we worry about all this stuff that just never happened. We're like, why do I worry so much about that stuff? You know, we all got through med school somehow, right? And so this is another one just on loneliness, metabolic illness, and mental health. So loneliness is a huge one. That's why we need each other. This oxytocin goes up when someone's nice, when people are taking care of each other. And so lack of social connection is a huge one. And so this is why the people of Rosetto have this benefit. You know, they watch it. Tro and I have been saying for years, the biggest indicators of failing is stress, lack of family support, right? So many people I've talked to already on the cruise, they said, I started doing it, no one else would do it, right? Richard, there you go. You can stand up. No. So anyways, like he did it. He goes, I don't care what everyone says, I'm doing it. And then he has these huge benefits. Lack of connection increases our all-cause mortality by 50%. You know, that sounds so crazy, but it's amazing how much we need each other. Mitochondrial dysfunction, which is what we're talking about with metabolic health. He finally said it, metabolic health, yes. Mitochondrial function, that's what it all is gonna come back to, you know, just overeating and stress and all these things. They're just so toxic to our body. Again, you know, just overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system. So it's okay to relax sometimes, not to be productive, right? Not to win the race, maybe, whatever. Being married, believe it or not, helps you live longer. It may seem like you live longer, but you actually do live longer, it sounds like. And workaholics, men, like, we're worse at all these things, for sure. Loneliness, huge. I was surprised 80% of adolescents are lonely, right? Even more, I would think it would be the seniors that were way out. But, you know, I think we've developed so many relationships, and adolescents are so, you know, especially these days, after being locked down and going through crazy stuff for the last few years. Again, abdominal obesity, all these things go up, more likely have negative interactions with people. So lonely people, like, I think a lot of people on Twitter, I see they're nasty. I think they must not, like, what happens when they go to the store? Like, who they work with, their families when they get home, how they treat people that are negative all the time, you know? So it's kind of like wherever you go, you kind of bring that with you. And again, lonely people are more likely to drink, smoke, and do these poor coping mechanisms. So pro-inflammatory, all these things we kind of talked about, sympathetic nervous system, we're looking at these same correlations. I just want to make that point: sleep, stress, loneliness, no gratitude. You screw up all these things that we're trying to fix. So you can eat the perfect keto diet and be stress intense and fight with everyone, and your stress hormones are going to screw you up. Again, mitochondrial health, right? That mitochondria, we can even predict depression now and anxiety just based on mitochondrial, some of these markers from mitochondrial health. So is there any hope? You're like, hey, we're on a cruise, you're bringing us down, right? So look, finding each other, finding groups, you know, having people that you encourage, people that inspire you, you know, and learning new things, it's a huge thing. You know, breathing, just taking a breath, right? I have 3 minutes left, so I could probably breathe now, hopefully. But, you know, taking a breath is really important. Just slow it down. Slow down. Take your foot off the gas for a minute. It's okay. You know, self-compassion. Don't nag at yourself all the time. Say, okay, you blew it. Okay, how do we fix it next time? Because so many of us, we have a cookie and we're a bad person now, right? Or our weight didn't drop. Therapy helps people, you know, having a good coach, interacting with people who've been ahead of you and have done well. Interactions with pets, you know, it seems silly. Petting your dog raises your oxytocin level, right? So go out and throw the ball for your dog and relax. Endurance, exercise, activity, overnutrition is a huge problem. It burns out the mitochondria. So if we fast, like Jason Fung's talking about, or eat less frequently, we do better. Ketogenic diet, avoiding toxins. You know, we have a lot of environmental toxins, so toxic people, you know, all that kind of stuff. Being out in social settings, grief counseling if you need that, or, you know, not bullying that, and I think breaking those strongholds, because as long as we don't talk about it, that has power over us. So I shouldn't say this on the cruise, but you have to burn the boat sometimes. These guys said, look, we're either winning or we're dying, because we're not going back. We burned the boats, we can't go back. So some of us go back. So these are things you can do. Tons of data on sauna in Scandinavian countries, you know, benefit from tons of benefits of releasing nitric oxide in our blood vessels, lowering down that sympathetic tone a bit. So it seems silly, even jumping in cold water, right? Increases metabolic rate. I read a couple studies coming on here. Amazing data that we have on these things. Or getting a massage, or going, this is where I live in Arizona. It's not all desert, believe it or not. So looking at puppies, reading your Bible, spiritual things, you know, hanging out, doing crazy stretching. These are the Rosetto guys. They don't look like they're triathletes to me, right? That's what they did. They had social connection, social interaction. That's what you're all doing here, right? Go on a cruise with all of us. And so this is another one just for patients over 65. They showed 8 months intervention of the strenuous choir practice, right? Choir practice, look, less doctors visit, less loneliness, less stress. Like, just from going to choir practice once a week. Because they could go vent and talk to people and see how their kids are doing. So we always talk about circling the wagons. It's hard to do it by yourself, right? So maybe getting off social media a little bit more. And so these are things, cognitive behavioral therapy, you know, some people have shown improved sugar just with antidepressants, but getting the gut microbiome, there's a lot of data on that too. So laughter, we'll stop with that. So basically, laughter helps everything. Lowers the sympathetic tone, raises all these feel-good chemicals. You can concentrate better. So, you know, just don't take yourself so serious so much. And I just want to end with this guy, because this is what we all kind of worry about. This guy's name's Dave. Maria Emmerich and Hal Cranmer have been working with him. This is how he showed up at Hal's place. Totally nonverbal. That's a red light therapy, you know, on his head right there. But that's how he sat and drooled for all this time. And hopefully I can get this to play. Here he is now. This is a month between, right? We talk about on Life's Best Medicine. This is an amazing story, but now he can give his medical history. He could talk. Before he was totally nonverbal. Going on a ketogenic diet and health code helped him. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. So these are some of my references, and thank you.